The cheapest IT setup is easy to find. The smartest IT setup, not as much. And confusing the two is where things start to get expensive. So, if you're going up and down the Best Buy aisle looking for the cheapest external hard drive, it might be time to get a second opinion. Let's start it up. Hello and welcome to Stack and Startup Al Fresco, the show where we ask you to think outside the box as we talk about business growth, leadership, and the real strategies behind scaling companies. Today, I want to talk about a decision every business makes, whether they realize it or not. Most businesses approach IT in one of two ways. Either they spend as little as possible on IT, or they build something far more complicated than they actually need. And honestly, both usually come from the same place, trying to make the right decision. Because no business owner wants to waste money, and nobody wants to feel unprepared. But over time, both extremes create problems. The goal is not cheap, and the goal is not complicated. The goal is to build the right systems for your business. So, what does cheap really look like? When businesses try to keep costs low, it usually starts innocently enough. Maybe the company is growing quickly. Maybe budgets are tight. Maybe there are simply bigger priorities at the moment. So the approach becomes, we'll deal with it later. Or we just need something that works right now. Or we'll upgrade when we have to. And to be fair, that's not irrational. A lot of businesses are trying to move fast. They're trying to reduce friction. They are trying to stay lean. But there is a difference between reducing costs and delaying costs. Because eventually, those decisions start compounding. Cheap IT usually looks like inconsistent systems, reactive support, minimal planning, and constant workarounds. At first, none of that feels catastrophic. It feels annoying. A slow computer here, an access issue there, something breaks, somebody resets it, everybody moves on. But over time, those small interruptions become operational friction. And friction is expensive, even when it does not show up on a balance sheet immediately. According to the IDC, business inefficiencies cost companies an enormous amount every year. Not all of that is technology, but poorly structured technology absolutely contributes to it. And this is where a lot of businesses get trapped because the setup still technically works. So nobody questions it until suddenly everything needs to be fixed at once. Let's take a look at the other extreme. And on that side, you have businesses that overbuild, usually with good intentions. They want to do it properly. They want enterprise grade tools. They want advanced systems. They want every best practice possible. But here's the problem: the best practice for whom? A 10-person business does not need the same environment as a 500-person company. And sometimes businesses end up paying for complexity they do not use, tools they do not understand, and systems their teams cannot realistically manage, at least not at their current scale. A lot of people assume more complicated means more professional. It doesn't. Complexity is not sophistication. In fact, the hallmark of design is simplicity rather than complexity. If it is easy for your team and gets the job done, you likely have a good design. If your team struggles to use the system is not helping you, it's slowing you down. And overbuilt environments create their own problems. You'll have slower onboarding, harder support, unnecessary cost, and decision paralysis. Because now every small change feels complicated. And if you're just starting out, you might have to expand your support team before they are ready to do so. And that's one of the reasons I want to look at this as cheap versus smart IT. And let's define the actual difference. Cheap IT is reactive, while smart IT is intentional. Cheap IT focuses on today's costs, while smart IT focuses on long-term impact. Cheap IT often avoids decisions, where smart IT makes decisions early before problems become expensive. Your cheap IT is fragmented, and smart IT is standardized. And importantly, smart IT does not automatically mean expensive IT. That's where people get confused. This is not about throwing money at technology. It is about solving the correct problem at the correct time. According to CompTIA, many businesses working with structured IT support actually reduce overall IT costs over time. Why? Well, because systems become consistent, inefficiencies are reduced, and decisions stop being reactive. The money is not disappearing, it's just being spent more intentionally. The biggest problem with cheap IT is that the costs are usually hidden. They rarely show up all at once. Instead, they show up in small interruptions, repeated issues, and tiny inefficiencies. The kind of problems everybody slowly gets used to. Employees waiting on systems, slow file access, login problems, applications crashing randomly, equipment hanging on by a thread or by a cable, literally. And eventually, those little interruptions become normal. That is dangerous. According to McKinsey, employees spend a significant amount of time dealing with inefficiencies and searching for information. And again, not all of this is IT, but IT absolutely plays a role. Then there is security. Because when businesses cut corners, security is often one of the first things neglected. Updates may get delayed, access controls stay messy, and backups are never tested, if they even exist. And over time, risk starts accumulating quietly. According to Verizon's DBIR, small businesses remain a major target for cyber attacks. Not because they're specifically hunted, but because they are often easier targets. And this is the important part. None of these problems feels urgent until they all collide at the same time. That is when businesses suddenly realize the cheap option was not actually cheap. So, what does a smarter setup actually look like? Honestly, usually something much more boring than people expect. Smart IT is consistent, it is maintained, it is documented, and aligned with the business itself. Not oversized, not flashy, not overloaded with features nobody uses. Good systems fit the company they support, not somebody else's company. Smart IT also reduces friction. That is one of the biggest indicators. Does the technology help people move faster? Or does it consistently create interruptions? Because good infrastructure should quietly support the business, not constantly demand attention. And smart environments are maintained consistently. Updates happen, systems are reviewed, risks are evaluated before they become emergencies. Not because perfection exists, but because stability requires attention. So let's explore a simple decision framework. This does not need to feel overly complicated. Most businesses can improve their technology decisions dramatically just by asking a few better questions. First, what happens if this fails? If the answer is not much, keep it simple. If the answer is this disrupts the entire business, then it deserves real investment. Second, are we solving these simple problems repeatedly? Because recurring issues are usually signs of structural problems, not isolated incidents. Third, do we actually understand what we are paying for? If the answer is no, there's probably inefficiency somewhere, or perhaps your MSP did not fully show you the value of what you pay for. And lastly, does this system reduce friction or create more of it? Because good technology should make operations smoother, not heavier. I have dealt with this personally too. When I build out parts of my own home lab, I was not working with enterprise budgets. I was pulling equipment out of recycling bins, buying used hardware off of eBay, trying to stretch every dollar as far as possible. And honestly, the only reason I got as far as I did was because the amount of research behind it. Even then, there were still gaps. And there still are. My home lab is far from what I would like it to be. Because every environment involves trade offs, even for experienced IT professionals. You are always better balancing cost, reliability, complexity, and your long term goals. The difference is understanding where those trade offs actually matter. So the goal is not the cheapest setup and is not the most advanced setup. It is the setup that actually fits your business. Because the smartest systems are usually not defined by how impressive they look. They are defined by stability, by alignment, by efficiency, and by resilience. So if your IT feels fragile, inconsistent, or unnecessarily complicated, that's worth paying attention to because both extremes create problems. And usually, the smartest decisions happen somewhere in the middle. So, as always, I want to thank you for tuning in to Stack and Startup Al Fresco. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to like and subscribe so you do not miss future conversations around business, technology, and growth. You can also find us anywhere you get your podcasts. And if you want to directly support the show, you can become a patron at patreon.com/stackandstartup. Until next time, keep thinking outside the box.